Welcome to the channel. In this video, I'll be taking a look at a phone that I recently picked up off of eBay. I wanted to buy one of the most cheapest options on the market that you could still arguably use as a phone today. So without further ado, let's start this. Here's the phone right here in this box that they shipped it in. I've yet to actually look at this box. Now, this phone is actually supposed to be an iPhone XR. If you didn't know anything about the XR, it's still getting software updates today. You can actually still use iOS 17 on this, which is actually pretty impressive if you ask me. But again, we're talking about Apple, which does like to support their devices for many years. Now, when it comes to the listing, this phone is supposed to be a 64 gig. It's also supposed to be in really good condition. They didn't say how good the battery is, but I'll find out when I actually turn this on what the health of the battery is on this phone. And then they didn't state it was supposed to come with anything like a charger or a cable, but I have a lot of those laying around, which we will be testing out in this video if this phone still charges. So let's go ahead and actually unbox this thing and actually see what we're working with here. Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. It looks like when it comes to this phone that I actually got, it looks like they did actually ship this with one of those outer boxes or outer box cases, however you want to pronounce it. Here it is right here, which I guess is actually pretty nice considering it was probably really protected in shipping. The only problem with this case is it's very dirty and it's also cracked, but that's to be expected. A lot of these outer box cases or outer box cases actually start to peel really easily. They lose their elasticity and everything because they are made from like a silicone rubbery material and over a plastic case. And on the front of this phone as well, you can see there is, it looks like from what I'm seeing is there is a screen protector on this as well. And it looks like it's either bubbling on the front of it, you can clearly see that, or it's water damage. I'm actually thinking it's most likely not water damage because again, they said in the listing it was actually in good condition. So most likely this is like bubbling from the screen protector or whatever the case may be. So let's go ahead and take off the case and see what the condition of this phone is in. I will have to say that this case is actually very disgusting before I take out the rest of it. I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but it's definitely very disgusting. It almost looks like there's a lot of snot and a lot of boogers on here, and it's just very disgusting. I don't know who in their right mind would ever want to ship something like this to a customer. It's just very disgusting. It almost feels like I really need gloves with this thing, but either way, I'll just wash my hands after this and try to touch as little of it as possible. It's too late for the gloves because I'm already knee deep in here. Okay, so it looks like the iPhone is also very disgusting. Right here where the charging port is, it's very dirty and very nasty. And then on the back, surprisingly, it's actually very clean. It doesn't even have any scratches or any visible dents or anything like that. It's pretty much in mint condition if you ask me. It looks very clean and very nice. And there's the color of it as well. And yeah, pretty much all the sides as well are just very disgusting as well. This also really makes me wish I would have had one of these phones because I've never actually owned one of these. And the thing is, if you never used one of the older phones or one, even Samsung or whatever, a lot of these older phones were also just very light. I know they don't have as many features as some of the newer phones. And of course, with more cameras, bigger batteries and things like that, phones are definitely going to be much more heavier like some of the newer phones. But it is kind of nice that this thing's kind of small, compact, and also a very lightweight as well. I do kind of miss those days, but you know, technology is advancing. They're putting more things in the phone, so they have to be a slightly bigger, more heavier as well. Let me go ahead and turn this thing on. I'm gonna not show this on camera if this thing turns on, just because there may be something on this device. A lot of times when you get used electronics, there may be other people's stuff on here that they forgot to clear off, and just for privacy reasons, I'm not actually going to show you, but it does look like it does boot up anyway, which is a really good sign. Okay, it looks like right away there is somebody else's stuff on here because I'm seeing on the lock screen someone else's photo. So I'm not going to show you that on camera. Most likely what I'm going to do is I'm going to contact the seller that I actually bought this from. And what I'm going to do is ask them what I want to do with their personal information and tell them that they probably forgot to erase their stuff, because I'm seeing on some of the applications here that I'll show you right now is they do have some stuff on some of their stuff, which I'm not going to open for privacy reasons, but they do have the mail has some stuff on it. It looks like the reminders has stuff, and some messages, Facebook, Messenger, and settings does. So there it is. But let's go ahead and go into settings really quickly and see actually what we're working with. So yes, someone's profile is actually signed in. Not really a surprise considering I've already seen other stuff on the home screen and lock screen. Let's go to the About section. General About. And it looks like there is photos and videos on here and some applications. Capacity is 64. I can tell you that right away in the settings. Yes. Capacity is the 64 variant, which is actually really nice. So they didn't lie about that. It is the 64 gig, which for today's standards is actually pretty low, considering how much these updates take. When you update your phone, photos, videos, apps just generally seem to get bigger and bigger. So 64 is not that great. And it looks like out of the 64 gig, they have 31 gig available to use. So they didn't use the whole entire phone. Now let's go all the way down really quickly to the battery and look at the battery percentage. Battery health and charging. Let's click on that. Okay, so it looks like the battery isn't necessarily the worst in the world, but it's not the greatest as well. What I'm actually seeing for the maximum capacity for this iPhone is actually 79%, which is not the worst, but it's also not the greatest. Most likely, you should probably change the battery on this thing. I'm assuming it'll still work quite well for a little while since it is sitting at 79%. But yeah, there it is. Now let me go ahead and actually put in my Wi-Fi and everything like that so we can actually test this out. Actually, before I do that really quickly, I want to check if this is actually a genuine Apple screen that's actually put on here. The easiest way to know if this is a genuine Apple screen is if you actually go into the notification center or whatever it's called, and then you actually try to hold down on the screen brightness. You can see if there's True Tone. If there's not True Tone, most likely it's a third-party aftermarket screen. Most of the newer phones do support True Tone. And yes, it does look like right here, True Tone is actually on the bottom when you go into the notification center, whatever it's called. There's True Tone activated. So this is most likely a genuine screen from Apple, which is actually very nice. And let me go back into settings, and then let me go ahead and type in all my credentials and things like that to see if the internet actually works on this phone. I will say this isn't the latest and greatest, and I will say the screen resolution on this thing is not the best and things like that. But considering how old this is, and also considering that it was extremely cheap, it's not that bad if you ask me personally. The screen resolution on this thing is about 720, which for today's standards is not great. But you have to remember that the XR only has a 6.1 inch screen. And since it only has a 6.1 inch screen, resolution shouldn't be an issue. And I think for a lot of people out there as well, you won't even be able to tell the difference from 720, 1080, or 1440p. I'm telling you, it does look pretty sharp actually at this 6.1 inch resolution. It won't look as sharp as something like a modern phone with a 1080p or greater screen, but considering what it is and it's only a 6.1 inch screen, that's not too bad to begin with. But yeah, it looks like I was able to connect to the internet, and let's go ahead and actually load up something on Safari real quick and see if anything actually works. Let me just go to like something like CNN.com. And it's not slow actually as well, which is actually pretty impressive. But there's CNN.com. I really do like the size of this more that I think about it. When it comes to phones, I was always a person that likes big screen phones. There are advantages to big screen phones besides just the actual screen size. The biggest thing is you usually always get a bigger battery and you usually get some type of better cameras when it comes to the camera technology, just because they're able to fit more in these bigger screen phones that are much more sizable. But this 6.1 inch screen is actually really nice, and I don't know why you would need smaller than 6.1. 6.1 is a really good size actually. I can easily use this as my day-to-day phone if I really wanted to, which I may end up using just for like a backup phone or something like that, because 6.1 is actually really nice. I did also forget to check in the settings actually as well what iOS version this is actually on. Software update, checking for update. Okay, it looks like they didn't get the last iOS update as well. It looks like right there, they're still missing iOS 16.7.2, and at the bottom it says upgrade to iOS 17. So yeah, they probably didn't use this for quite some time. I'm assuming they probably left this in a drawer, or maybe they used it and just didn't update it because a lot of people don't know how to update these phones, and these phones aren't, it's not mandatory that you upgrade these phones to the latest software update. But yes, I'll update that later because it will take some time even if you're on fast internet. But yeah, going back to CNN, it looks like it's also a pretty smooth experience. Keep in mind as well, this is still one of the older phones, so besides the 720p resolution, it also only supports a 60 hertz screen or 60 frames per second, but that's still plenty enough. And I think for a lot of people out there, especially people who just want a phone to work and still want to be on the latest and greatest when it actually comes to software and things like that, this phone is actually still a really usable phone. I'm not seeing any massive lag or anything like that. I do know Apple does tend to slow down the phones when they actually have worse battery health. I think nowadays you can choose if you want the full performance versus a worse battery, or a like, you know, vice versa. You can choose how you want it to be laggy or not be laggy to protect the battery. If you want full performance, but the battery could die faster and things like that. But so far, it's very smooth and very usable. Let me go ahead and go to another thing. Let's go try ESPN. ESPN. It's not really slow at all. I don't remember what Wi-Fi this uses. I think this only uses like Wi-Fi, I want to say AC. I don't think 6 was out at the time, and definitely not Wi-Fi 6E like modern devices. But for what it is, this thing is still very fast. And it's also pretty crazy considering how small the screen is. You don't notice that 720p screen. I'm sure if you're a pixel peeper, or if you compare this to another phone side by side, of course the screen is going to look worse. But I think for a lot of people, it looks okay. And even if I zoom in on the screen, like for instance, I go to this top headlines right there, it looks very nice. You can't even notice the difference. Honestly, for phone screens, you can easily get away with 720p. That'll also depend on the screen size as well. But I think at least, again, for 6.1 inches, the screen size is perfectly usable. And I think even if you used a 1080p screen and you went down to this screen, I don't think you would really notice that much of a difference, honestly. That goes to show you that if you get a small enough screen size, the PPI is good enough that it actually doesn't matter. But yeah, let me go ahead and actually do one more thing before I head out of the video really quickly, because it looks like everything's working. The touch is working, Wi-Fi is working. I'm just going to assume Bluetooth's working since I'm not going to test Bluetooth at the moment. I do want to test if this charger charges, because that will be another make it or break it for this phone. If this phone doesn't charge, then we're in big trouble, of course. But let's go ahead and actually charge this thing. I already have a charger set up with a lightning cable, so let's go ahead and plug in the lightning cable. This is going to be the true test here, and I'm sure the iPhone XR does not support wireless charging, so when it comes to wireless charging, you're out of luck. I do like the fact too, even though this is one of the last iPhones to still get iOS 17, it still has one of the more modern displays when it comes to iPhones. It still has that almost bezel-less thing on the front, no more home button or anything like that, and it does support Face ID, which is actually pretty nice. Okay, the phone's not charging. Oh, that could also be, excuse me, that might also be the charger that I'm using is not actually correctly plugged in. Okay, now it's actually charging. I was a little bit worried there, but yes, it's charging at the very top. You can see it, and it's at 45%. Not bad, not bad. And it is charging with, again, a 79% health for the battery life of this actual phone. Overall, I would say this is a win-win for me. For the most part, it looks like it's in very good condition. It charges. It does support True Tone as well. So most likely, this is an original iPhone screen or something like that. So it is nice. It does have True Tone. Wi-Fi works on this, 79%. It's still very fast and not really laggy or anything like that. Overall, for the most part, I would say this is a win-win, considering I got this under $200. Now, the thing is, you do have to realize as well before I head out of here that this phone is actually pretty old, and in the next year, most likely Apple is going to not support this thing when it comes to iOS 18. So when it comes to iOS 18, you're most likely going to be out of luck. I mean, the phone will still run after it stops getting support, but the thing is, it's only a matter of time until the App Store fully stops being supported. After that, it won't be soon, right after the last update actually occurs on this, because a lot of times with Apple devices, they'll still support them when it comes to security updates. They'll give you security updates for quite some time after, but just not a full-fledged brand new iOS release when it comes to this phone. So just take that in mind. This phone still is a very old phone. Even though I did pay under $200 for this phone, it is pretty old, but it's still nice that this phone is working and it looks way better than I was actually expecting, considering how old this phone is and considering it only uses a 720p screen. I would say honestly still a win-win for this phone, and it's not bad at all. And don't believe what other people tell you about the screen being bad or not supporting 120 hertz when it comes to the refresh rate of the screen. 60 is still good as long as the battery's still good. It's not lagging or anything like that, and I don't see any dead pixels. I don't see any damage to the display or anything like that. This was actually a pretty big win. I would say probably the only worst part about this phone, considering everything else, would be the game performance of this thing is not going to be up to par with other phones. Multitasking may not be the greatest, and then of course the camera on the back, since it is only a one array camera instead of like the 3 setup that a lot of modern iPhones have, it's not going to take the greatest pictures out there, even the resolution of it. But hey, that's what you're expecting under $200 nowadays. It's not going to be the greatest, but again, you're paying under $200, and the person who's paying $200 for the under $200 for this thing ain't looking for the best and greatest thing out there on the market. They know they're going to have a lot of sacrifices when it actually comes to the performance, when it comes to the screen and things like that. I don't know what would be the next step up after this phone. I was just trying to buy the cheapest one on the market at the time that's still usable as a phone. I'm sure you can probably get a little bit nicer, more modern one for a little bit more cash than this one. But again, if you want one of the more cheaper ones, this is definitely an option for you. I will say the other thing that's holding this phone back for sure is the 64 gig, because I can easily fill up 64 gig quite easily, considering how much things are out there and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this video. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne signing out.